Without further ado, Rocky Patel wants to say a few things.
Thank you guys. It's been a while since I've been here. And, you know, for those of you that don't know, I kind of grew up in the Midwest in the neighboring state of Wisconsin. And I always appreciate the Midwest. I miss the Midwest. And I'm proud to be here. Jeff's been a tremendous supporter of ours. And in this day and age, it's rare when you can find a beautiful cigar lounge like this where you can enjoy fine cigar, hang out with friends, because on a daily basis, our personal rights, freedoms, and privileges are being taken away by the federal government, by the state government. It was about 4 years ago that they wanted to charge $10 per cigar as a federal tax. Every time we imported a cigar from Nicaragua, Honduras, and Dominican, it would actually cost 4 cents. And they wanted to charge $10. I fought long and hard in Washington, D.C. with a few people, and we finally negotiated a settlement for 40 cents. It was still one of the highest increases in the history of the IRS tax code on a single product. In the state of Minnesota, you have the most egregious tax ever on cigars. 90% or 95%, it's crazy, like Florida has 0. We're working long and hard with Jeff to try and overturn that, to try and get a 50-cent cap. It takes a lot of work. I urge you all to join an organization called Cigar Rights of America. The website is cigarrights.org. 100% of the money goes towards fighting anti-tobacco legislation, taxes, and the rights and freedoms to smoke a cigar in a place like this. Presently, we're facing something even more serious. FDA is trying to regulate premium cigars. The reason this happened, it became an unintended consequence of regulation. The products that they were after were very different. So in a nutshell, right now the definition of a premium cigar in the TTB tax code is very broad. It includes products like Philly Blunts, Swisher Sweets, all the front wrap that you see with watermelon, grape flavor at Circle K, 7-Eleven. That is all called a premium cigar. So what we did is we came up with our own definition of what a premium cigar is. Basically 100% natural tobacco, wrapper, binder, filler, rolled by hand, etc., etc. And we have a bill pending in Washington asking for an exemption from premium cigars because they're quite different. Why? Because first, you don't have youth access issues. Secondly, it's not something that's addictive. It's something you enjoy, like a fine glass of wine, like a single malt scotch. It's enjoyed by adults to celebrate. There have been no health studies that show premium cigars are bad for you. You don't inhale them. So we have a majority of Congress and Senate on this bill. The problem is John Boehner is blocking it. The reason he's blocking it is because they're in the pocket of big tobacco. Philip Morris, Altria, and Swisher, they want regulation, along with a couple of big cigar companies called General and Altadis, because they believe that if there's regulation, it'll wipe out all the little guys, and the big guys will succeed, and it's a barrier to entry. It's that old philosophy. So we're working hard there. We're also fighting the FDA. We're working the Office of Management and Budget. Basically, that office was set up with Clinton, and the basis of that office is no regulation can come through that office unless the regulation shows that the benefit to society completely outweighs the burden to the industry. Well, in this case, there is no study that shows there's a benefit to society from regulating cigars. The burden is the following. Here's what FDA is proposing. No more walk-in humidors. No more self-serve tobacco. Like cigarettes, you get handed a black and white sheet of tobacco, a black and white catalog. You'd have to pick your cigars from there. That whole humidor would have to be blacked out. The worst part about all this is every time I make a cigar, per size, it's going to cost us $350,000 to register that cigar with the FDA. That would wipe out, according to the FDA's own terms, 70% of the industry. On top of which, there'd be new taxes, warning stickers. You couldn't have an ashtray with the word Ashton or Rocky Patel on it, a lighter. You couldn't even have these signs on the windows with cigar names on it. You couldn't have the word cigar outside. There'd be no more cigar aficionado. This is a reality. We're spending millions of dollars. I alone, from our company, we spend almost $500,000 a year, not counting the time in Washington every other week between hotel rooms, meeting senators, meeting congressmen, greasing their campaigns, hanging out with them. So this has been a long fought effort. So I urge you all to get involved. This is a battle because you got tobacco-free kids, American Cancer Society, World Health Organization, all these people who are very, very involved. And we've managed to educate Congress and Senate to show that premium cigars are very different than all of the tobacco products. So having said that, Let me tell you how it all starts. It basically starts in the nursery. It takes 45 days for a seedling to mature. When it matures, it goes into the farm. In the farm, there are two types of tobacco. There's shade-grown tobacco and sun-grown tobacco. The sun-grown tobacco, the plant gets about 5.5 feet tall. The leaves are very thick in viscosity, mostly used for filler that goes in the guts of the cigar. Shade-grown tobacco is literally grown under cheesecloth. It blocks 75% of the ultraviolet rays. The plants get 8.5, 9 feet tall. The leaves are very long, very thin, mostly used for wrapper. When most factories make a blend, they take that tobacco plant and they break it into 3 sections. The top third of the tobacco plant has the heaviest tobacco, the thickest tobacco, the most flavorful tobacco, the richest tobacco, and it's called ligero. The middle third tobacco plant is medium body in texture, medium body in flavor, and it's called viso. The bottom third tobacco is the mildest tobacco, the thinnest tobacco, and it's called seco and goes in the mildest cigar. So when most factories make a blend, they use a leaf of ligero, viso, seco, or any combination. The problem with that is the following. Let's say I decide that I want to make a richer, full-bodied cigar. If I use tobaccos from the very top third of the tobacco plant called ligero, that bale goes into the factory. One roller on a particular blend uses leaves from the very top of the tobacco plant called ligero. Another roller uses leaves just a little lower, still classified as ligero. You're going to get inconsistency in the strength of the cigar in the same box for the same blend. So in order to avoid that, what I do is I take that plant and I break it down into more specific classifications that I call primings. So when we classify that plant, I take it and call it the first priming, second priming, third, fourth, fifth, all the way to the 8th priming. So when I make a blend, I'll say I want the 8th priming from a particular farm in Esteli, Nicaragua. I want the 7th priming from a particular farm, Amistran, Honduras. 6th priming from a particular farm in Costa Rica. This way, every single cigar has the exact same leaf from the same plant, same fertilization, same fermentation to guarantee consistency from box to box, cigar to cigar. You know, it's interesting in the wine industry, people expect the wine to be different, vintage to vintage based on climate. Well, the same principle applies to cigars. Tobacco from a particular farm, from the rainy season to the dry season, with the same leaf, same priming, is different. The tobacco from the rainy season, from the 5th priming, is milder than the tobacco from the dry season, from the 5th priming, from the dry season. So like a mad scientist, we're always playing around with the primings, because if you smoke a decade, or you smoke an edge, or a 15th anniversary, you guys expect the taste to be exactly the same. So we're always adjusting the priming to make it exactly similar. It's not perfect, but it's the best thing you can do for a handmade product. The next thing that happens is that tobacco then goes into a curing barn. In the curing barn, basically you get these green leaves, they take the stems together, they run a sewing noodle through it, they hang them on bamboo poles. In the old days, there'd be gas-fired heaters every 10 feet, and they'd fire them during the day, open the barn doors at night, and you'd slowly cure that tobacco. You try to get rid of the humidity in the tobacco. That tobacco would go from a green color to a yellow mutated color to a brown color. Now through modern technology, we have gas-fired, not gas-fired heaters, but we have air conditioning ducts that run through the bottom and top of the barn, digitally control the temperature and humidity. And it allows us to get perfectly golden brown leaves, and it works better. There's no water spots on it, so you get a lot more wrapper. Then that tobacco goes into fermentation. Fermentation is simply the most important process in anything to get a great quality cigar. It's the natural biological decomposition of tobacco. All that rich fertilizer the tobacco absorbed in the farm, the nitrogen, the boron, the potassium, the magnesium, you're trying to bleed that out. Many of you have heard with Cuban cigars and other cigars, put the cigar away for a year, put the cigar away for 2 years, and it's going to be better. Well, when you're putting the cigar away for that long, what you're doing is you're getting rid of the intended taste the cigar was supposed to have. But you're also getting rid of the bad elements, which is the fertilizer. Well, in our case, we spent 4 years, 5 years fermenting the tobacco. Simply what happens is you take that tobacco, you put it in a pot that is 5 foot wide, 10 foot long, you add nothing but very clean water to it, 2,500 pounds of pressure from the weight of the tobacco, and every 10 days you rotate the pod, top to bottom, bottom top, inside out, outside in. When the temperature gets to about 135 degrees Fahrenheit, you do this process over and over. That gets rid of the nitrogen, the boron, potassium, magnesium. That allows the cigar, so when you smoke our cigars, you'll notice you can smoke them down to here. They never get sour, they never get bitter, you never get the harshness, you never get the ammonia taste, because we spend time fermenting the tobacco. It's very important. Many times we stop production on a brand like Decade or Edge or other brands for 4 months, 6 months, because one leaf needs more time in the fermentation process. So this is very, very important. Can I just get a sheet of paper, just a plain white sheet of paper? So this is a very, very important process. Once that tobacco is fermented, then it goes in the aging room. We have tobaccos that are 4 years old, 6 years old, in the case of our vintage, 10 and 12 years old. We actually have the tobacco in bales that sits in perfect climate, about 67 degree temperature, 70% humidity, and it just ages. And we keep it there for a long time. When you age the tobacco, it really makes it nice and mellow, and you get the raw flavor of the tobacco and nothing else in it. So at any one time, we're sitting on 18 or $20 million worth of tobacco, because with so many different types of leaves, so many different blends, you have to hold on to that inventory. Then once that tobacco is ready, it goes in the rolling parlor. In the rolling parlor, there are 2 rollers, we call them buncheros. One person bunches the cigar, the other person puts a wrapper on the cigar. This is the second most important process in the construction of the cigar. We limit our rollers to making 250 cigars per pair a day. Most factories make 400 to 500 a day. In Cuba, they make 700 a day. Here's the problem with it. If this is one leaf of tobacco, you're literally going to take that leaf and you're going to fold it like this in an accordion fashion, one on top of the other. When you do that, it creates air passages through the tobacco. Like a carburetor in a car, it can breathe properly, it can draw properly. You're not going to get cigars that are plugged. You're not going to get cigars that run sideways on you. We like to use a lot of heavy tobaccos or fuller bodied cigars. They're difficult to burn because they hold a lot of weight, they hold a lot of sugar, they hold a lot of crystallization. So you really have to take the time to bunch it properly and put one leaf on top of the other. Once it is bunched, and it comes out like that, then you get a raw water tobacco, it goes into a wooden mold, and every 15 minutes they give it a quarter turn till it's nice and round. Now the wrapper is still not applied on it. Before the wrapper is put on it, 100% of the cigars we make are draw tested. That means there's a machine with a suction cup that pulls on it, and it measures the amount of air flowing through it. If it's too light or too tight, we destroy the cigar. That's why we guarantee the draw on 100% of our cigars. Most factories don't have draw test machines. The ones that do only randomly draw test 2 to 3% of the cigars. That's why this is important. Then the wrapper's put on the cigar. Once the wrapper's put on the cigar, they weigh all 50 cigars to make sure they fall within 2 to 3 grams of each other. They look at the head of the cigar to make sure the heaviest tobacco is in the center of the cigar. They look at the cap of the cigar to make sure it's centered. Then it goes in the quality control room where they actually touch every cigar, make sure there's no knots on it. They check the ring gauge of the cigar and many other things. And this is simply for construction. 300 different hands touch the tobacco. By the time we plant a seedling in the ground, time to get a cigar in a box takes 4 to 5 years. It's something, a labor of love, something we're very passionate about. Then the tobacco or the cigars go into the aging room. They sit there for 4 to 6 months. The heavier the tobacco, the more water it retains, the more time it needs in the aging room to extract the humidity out of the cigars. We like to release the cigars at about 11.5% humidity. Once they're ready, then they go into the packing department. In the packing department, now you're looking for simply the aesthetic color of the cigar. Being a natural product, there's a wide range of colors that the wrappers have. I have a very strict standard on how I want the cigars to look. If you open up any of our boxes, you'll notice that all the cigars look the same. Because if you come to a store like that and somebody buys 10 cigars and they open up a new box to reload it and you see gradations of different colors, which you'll see in many different brands, you're going to wonder what's going on with the cigar. The cigars that are a little lighter or darker than the standard I've set, perfect in construction, perfect in taste, you wouldn't know the difference, are called factory selects. Cigars that have veins showing on them, spots showing on them, become factory seconds. 27% of the cigars that we make are rejected as factory selects and factory seconds perfect in construction, perfect in flavor, perfect in smoke. That's how particular we are on the detail. I don't know how many of you have been down to a factory. There's a few faces I recognize. It's an amazing trip. 3 nights, 4 days. You get to go to Nicaragua, Honduras. You see our farms, our curing, our fermentation. You see all the different tobacco laid out. You get to make your own blends. We have a beautiful pool. We play poker. We have a live band. All you can drink and eat. All you do is pay for your airfare. It's an amazing trip. It's a great time. You'll have a great learning education. So this is something we're very proud of the strict quality control standards we have. We like to make cigars that have a lot of character, a lot of flavor. We have tobaccos that we introduce from different parts of the world, from mild, medium to full bodied. So thank you for having us here, and I promise you, nobody works harder to deliver a great quality cigar at a fair price. So thank you.